Hi, I'm Keith with New Vintage Automotive, and today I want to go over our newest production of the 69 to 73 Opel GT instrument panels. These are all 100% new. They are correct for 70 to 73. They will work in a 69 model. You will need to get some additional hardware, but these are made to reuse your hardware. And what I wanted to do was go over installing that hardware in case maybe you just get the parts or something from somebody that had pulled the original hardware out of their panel. So we're going to cover this today. I'm going to bring it in close, and you're only going to need about 4 tools. You'll need a Phillips screwdriver, a small Phillips screwdriver, a flathead, small. You'll need a 6mm, I prefer a nut driver, and also a 7mm nut driver or sockets. The reason I use nut drivers on this is so I don't damage the new panel by, over torquing anything. So we're going to go through this. There are some tips and tricks. These will be available through our European partners and most of your retailers here in the United States. So without further ado, we will get started. Okay, I think that'll be a good enough angle where I can show you on stuff. So we'll set the indicator piece. We'll just set it aside for now. And we're going to flip this over. I'll have the gauge studs are what I like to do first. So I can kind of maneuver this around, but you'll get the idea. I'll make sure we're in there. And you'll need, I believe, 10 studs. You'll have 2 studs per gauge. And these studs are, they're kind of a coarse thread with a 6mm hex, and then they go to a fine thread screw. And this is where, even though this panel's new and it's got extra support for these studs, if you're going crazy on this, you can still mess it up. So that's why I like a nut driver. So I take a 6mm nut driver, and you want a deep well or a standard nut driver, and we're gonna slowly thread it in. If you feel like the stud isn't if you feel like you're going to break something, slow down. You can even oil this plastic to cut these threads, because that's what you're doing basically. You are cutting new threads, and I just want to make sure I bottom out. I don't over torque this. If you over torque these, you're going to snap them, and you've just wasted your money, because it pays to take your time. I'm going to do a few of these, and when I get them all, I'll probably cut to the next part. But I just want you to see how I'm taking my time. Anytime you're dealing with plastics, you just got to be careful. Make sure you're bottomed out and not over torqued. I'm going to come back to this. See, like this last one, I'm holding a post when I tighten these down because they got some flex, and you know, you'll be like, ooh, is that, you know, I hope that doesn't break. I mean, it's plastic, so you got to be careful. So you can see the studs, how they're bottomed out. Okay, and there's 2 per gauge. So, with that, I like to, this is the Illumination. Now, 69s, early dashes didn't have this. And this is just to help illuminate the switches. And there's 2 slots up top here that these 2, this is like a fiber optic piece. And see, those will go up into that slot. You'll kind of set it in here and you push it and it'll click in. Okay? And see, there's 2 light bulbs here that help illuminate through that, and it's like a fiber optic. Also the heater control. Some people modify them, try to make them work better, but I don't know there's much really you can do about it. And then you have this piece that is the bulb holder. It just sets on top of that. Make sure there's some slots on the top, and it'll kind of go in, and then there will be 2 flathead screws. Sorry on the focus there, but those are little skinny fathead screws that'll go into those holes. Hopefully the screwdriver is good enough to cut these in. This original panel is made to the original specs, so everything should go in just like the originals. So you know, your screws are going to be too long, or worry about them poking through, anything like that. The only thing you'll have to modify on these panels is if you have an original, if you're trying to be dead stock original, on top of this radio hole, you'll need to drill a hole for the tuning screw. That's just getting particular, but I just wanted to cover that. Okay, so got that part in, and next thing is I'm going to work on the clamp for your indicator. That'll get this bracket. It'll get this black plastic clamp, and it'll get this spring. There's a spring. That's so you can remove it in the car. And I need these 2 screws. They're 2 6 millimeter hex screws, real short. So this piece has this peg. You can see it against my white shirt pretty good. And that is kind of like there's a corresponding channel right here. Okay, that will go in, and it just kind of, it doesn't really do much of anything, but it does just kind of help you know which way to line that up. You can see it'll set in there by itself. Then that spring is going to go into it, Okay, in the trough of it, that spring will sit. It's got a little slot. That spring will sit. And you just put that spring in there and you push it against the panel. Okay, you see how it's just up inside that panel lip. Then you take your metal bracket piece and you cover it up, and then a 6 millimeter screws, tighten it down. You don't have to go crazy on it, just tight. Okay, make sure it's good. And then that piece is in there, and when you get this done, you kind of like place it in, the bottom sticks out, and you push up and it'll snap in. So now that's in place, and I'm just going to leave it there for the time being. So we got that. Okay, now we got two areas here, one in between the gauges. This is a junction for all your power wires for the gauges. There will be black and red wires, and those look like these. It's a six terminal tree, I'll call it, and you got two of them. And this one over here is for the lights to the gauges. It'll be a bunch of gray wires that go to it, and there's two screws. They're Phillips head. And they got little serrated washers. And this one points down. So basically it'll have an empty hole pointing downward. Kind of get both screws started. Make sure I got my washers. The washers aren't critical. I mean, as far as I know, they're serrated. They're not for like electrical connection. They're just to make sure it doesn't back off. Okay, and then this one, the two screws, the empty hole will point up. For some reason, these screws were yellow zinc. Doesn't matter. You just want to make sure you don't have too long of a screw. Well, of course, I dropped that one. We'll get these in. And sorry for the technical snafu. Like I said, I don't dare take a power tool to it. All you need, you want to do this manually. Okay, so you can see those. See how they're attached. Okay, that's the in between the indicators, and then up here, and that one points down. So now I'm gonna install a switch, and you would think, well, you know, nothing special there, but there is. A lot of people don't realize it. So here's my switch. This is a 72 dash I'm putting together. I happen to have a NOS switch for this. And you're going to need, if you don't have them, you're going to need some washers. And these take nuts. So what these have on those two studs, they get a spacer washer. Okay, they all came with it. Now it could be, you know, it might have a wave washer, a little small wave washer, and doubled up. It'll have them on this side, and it'll also have them on the nut side. Okay, so I just want to mention that they all had those washers. If yours are missing it, then someone's took them out. And not that they're critical, but it's just to help prevent over pulling on this. So then I'm just going to clip the switch in there, and it will kind of you know, snap into place. And then I'll put the washers on, and I'll start the nuts by hand. Sorry about that. And I'll get a 7. These are 7mm. I'm gonna slowly tighten them up. I kind of watch the inside, make sure I'm set in there. I do watch that back washer, so there's no reason to over tighten anything. These just get snug. Okay. All right. Okay, so you can see, oh, sorry about that. Okay, you can see there's a nut with a little wave washer to lock it in. You can see the other detail there too. Okay, so that's just one switch. I don't have the other switch ready, cleaned up for this. You will also have a lower switch here. This is a fasten seatbelt switch. And these get a longer screw, and they have a washer and they're a Phillips screw. Okay, and they'll get 2 of those. And I'm just gonna place them in these holes for right now. And I may bring a switch in here in a second, but at this time I'm just gonna place those. Because we're at the point where I can grab some gauges probably. I'm going to actually... So I just place those for now. I'll bring in a switch in a later part of this video. So now to this. So you'll see there's 3 screw holes there. And you have this metal panel that you got to put on. And this is straightforward. The factory did have some foam around this. And it does give some cushion to these lenses. Now, I have a little glass bead cabinet. I can clean these lenses up good. So it's like usually this white one is the one that's always nasty and you can't clean it. But the glass bead cleaned it. And these will only go in one way. You'll see this white one's got a notch here. And then this blue one's got a center notch. Okay? And same with the, you know, these got a nub. So they'll only go in one way. So the green are the turn signal indicators. And they'll go off to the sides. And then the blue is the high beam, and it's got a peg there, so it can only go in one way. And then same as these, they got a little slot around that. So that's your orientation. Okay, this is a headlight indicator, and this is a brake failure or emergency brake, parking brake warning light. And you got this that'll go over top of it. And the reason they put that foam in, and I'm going to do it on this, but you can hear, it needs a little bit of cushioning. Yeah, I mean, you could lightly glue that so it doesn't do that, and it'll be fine. And then you'll have 3 little screws. They're little small mini Phillips, so that's where you'll need your small screwdriver. And I got some little shorter screws that are plated. I'm just going to use. And this isn't rocket science at all. This is, you know, my 5-year-old could probably do this. So don't sweat it too much. Yeah, okay. That's in, and then that can go in and be installed. So I made a big deal about these switches having these spacers. Well, another thing that has some spacers, mainly the small gauges, I never really see those with spacers. Occasionally they would hand fit these, I believe, because some of these, they would put 2 spacers here between the gauge mount and the stud, because if you put your gauge on and you're having to bend that tab down, you got too much space, you're going to break a stud. So they did use spacers here. So in my last video part probably got cut off funny. But what I was stressing is that almost in every case where, like, this switch has spacer washers, so did the tachometer and the speedometer. So you just got little washers that went in between these gauge tabs and the stud. And what that does is, if your gauge, when you put it on here, if it has a big gap between it and the stud, you need to space it. Now sometimes the factory put 2, maybe even 3 spacers on it. Okay, you don't want to bend these tabs down on these studs, or you'll break them. That's why most of them are broken. People take them off and they don't see those spacers. Okay, so let me reiterate that you got these flat little washer spacers, and you'll have to fit your gauges. But always, almost always on the speedometer and tachometer, they had spacers. I think on this one I may have to add 2 per side. So let's we got our gauge restored, okay, and I'm going to set it down and I'm going to look at it, and I realize that it needs to pull it down a little bit, but it's going to need quite a bit of space on this side. Okay, I'll make sure that center rim, make sure the center rim is centered. And that one will be good. I have a little gap there, but that's okay. You need a little bit. I'm going to try to straighten this one up and see what I need for it. It's probably going to be okay. Okay, so I got it in there. Then you got these like barrel nuts. They're thumb nuts. Okay. And they've got a 7mm hex on them. So I'm gonna put those on. And then, yeah, I had it on there. I'm gonna lightly tighten them up. When you tighten these, sometimes it'll push the gauge around. Okay, it might shift on you. So that's when you flip it over and you make sure it's center. Okay, so I'm centered here. If you see too much on one side, you need to adjust on those. Now I'm going to do the tachometer, same way. I'm going to spend the most time with the gauges and the fit of them. If you just throw them in, they're not going to look right. I'm going to check that I'm centered. Because I feel like on this one, I got to do some tweaking around to get that bezel in there, and that's all it took. I'm going to add a washer here because I feel like it's going to pull it funny. The tachometer is the funniest because you only have two, and they're kind of they're not straight across from each other. Okay, I'll get two more barrel nuts and just see where I'm at. Like I said, we can kind of twist those, tweak them, and then see where we're at with our bezel. See, I'm off a little bit, so I'll work that some more. And that's critical right there, those spacers. And then I'll just slowly fit everyone. I'm going to sit here, I'm going to tweak this one, make sure I get everything right. Other than that, everything is pretty self-explanatory. You got your cigar lighter. You got the bezel that'll go on first. You put your cigar lighter through, and then you got a nut and a spring. I'm not going to totally go through everything. There are some brackets here. I'll need to get the screws for those. But let's see. You got this one that goes, that holds the flasher socket. And then we got this passenger side one. It goes over here somehow. I forget. But we'll get those. So that's it. Just be careful with these studs, and you should be successful. We'll get this up, and I might shoot another little video. Okay, so now I got all my gauges in. Still got it on zoom because you really gotta center these gauges and space them if you want them perfect. You know, these gauges all been restored, and you will find slight differences, and things got to be bent, and tabs, washers, those spacers really make a difference in centering of these. Occasionally I even got to file out an outlet. And you know, like I said, all these gauges have been restored, so your results are going to be different. I had to play with them a little bit because things have been changed. Like I would take an original gauge and it fit perfect, you know, so I have to maybe use one of these deburring tools and go inside and open one up a little bit. You know, you might have to paint some of the chrome around the bezel to hide it. It might be too big of a hole. It just depends. The gauges fluctuate. But hopefully that helps you on installing these. And if you know, you got any issues, you know, just ask. We can go over it. But you know, so that's the new panels, and that's what it involves in fitting this stuff. I mean, you could throw them back in and it'd probably be fine, but I just wanted to go over it, make sure, you know, you kind of had some tips and a little help to it. So that's going to conclude our video on the instrument panel. I just wanted to go over the studs as kind of the main part, because that's where you really got to spend your time. I don't want you to get a new panel and mess it up. Also, coming soon, I mean, like any day now, are the Opel GT armrests. Real high quality. Nice finish to them. They're going to be available in red, off-white, and black. And they will be shipping, should be maybe this week, if not into the next week. So that's another product from New Vintage. We're also working on the center shifter consoles in the same material. And I think with what they did with this, we'll knock them out of the park. As Paul Jr. would say. So appreciate you watching the video. I'll try to edit it up. I had some flubs in that one. Just take your time, fit in your gauges, and you'll have a nice instrument panel. These install really nice. The heater control plates seem like they fit even better with these. And you know, the original panels are 50 years old. They're just brittle. They're gonna, you know, have broken gauge studs and cracks. And we felt like this was a product that, you know, the Opel community needed. So I hope you appreciate the effort, and you can contact us about purchasing one, or your local Opel parts dealer. Thanks again.